My next guest fights Ramazan Emeev on June the 11th at UFC 275. And of course, it is Jack Della Maddalena on the show. Jack, how are you?
Good, thanks, Ryan. Thanks for having me.
It's my pleasure. Happy to have you on. And before we dive into this camp and your upcoming fight, I did want to ask you about Jack Becker. I interviewed him most recently, and I know he had this title fight this past weekend, and he had that nasty injury. Have you had a chance to talk to him, and how is his spirits?
He's actually in good spirits for such a terrible injury, but he's doing well. He's had his surgery and back on the road to recovery.
Do we know how long he's going to be on that road to recovery?
Not too sure. I sort of spoke to him briefly. I don't know how correct it is. I think the surgeon sort of had a plan to be light moving in 3 months. So It's a
Okay.
long road, but he'll be back. But I'm guessing, yeah, probably, yeah, it'll take a bit of time to recover, get that confidence back, but he will be back. I'm sure of it.
He really seemed like a guy that was right on the cusp of, maybe getting this win and being into the UFC. Did you feel the same way? Like he's someone inevitably that's going to be in the big show?
Yeah, I definitely thought so. I thought he was looking good obviously the fight didn't last very long. He was looking good at the start. He felt loose. Training camp went really well for him. It's one of those unfortunate things. I think he was right there, ready for a shot at one of the biggest shows, but it is what it is. It's horrific thing to see. But there's not much you can do about it.
Yeah, well, definitely good thoughts and prayers to him and his family. I hope
Yeah.
he's back in there again soon. As far as yourself, Jack, how has this camp been? I know June 11th is still a few days away, but it'll be here before you know it. How good has this camp been for you?
Yeah, it's been really good. Really good. It's been a good camp. We had on the night Jack fought, there was a lot of boys from our gym fighting. So yeah, it's been a good camp. Everyone's been working hard together, and I'm super excited for a big show and have a good solid fight.
Who are some of your main training partners? I did see on your Instagram that you had the great one there, Alexander Volkanovski, right next to you. Is he around as a main training partner too, or is he not in there as much?
No, he just came down for a couple of days to the gym, so did get to spend a couple of days training with Alex, which is obviously pretty awesome to get that experience. But yeah, main training partners, got a pretty solid team. I've got Jack Becker was one of the main training partners leading up until his fight. My brother Josh, Lawrence Whitesmith, and then we've got Roy Armistead from Melbourne who's come and joined us. So we've got a good solid team of fighters, and we've been training pretty hard and getting ready for that Russian wrestling style.
What do you have left to do here in these last 10 days before the fight actually comes to fruition?
Got this week, got a couple more days of sort of get some couple of rounds in, some more, just brush up on the timing and accuracy of shots. And so, yeah, a couple more days training, some sparring and stuff. And then next week, we'll probably just take it a bit more easy and just work on pad work and movement and get the weight off and get down to the fight.
Yeah,
So a
right.
couple more days left of hard training, and then we're good to go.
Very good. Again, June 11th, UFC 275. Cannot wait for this one. One of the things I wanted to ask you, Jack, I was super intrigued. When I first saw you on Contender Series, I thought to myself, I can't believe this guy has 2 losses. He looks unbeatable. And those first 2 losses were your debut fight as a pro and your second fight. So you're going into your third fight 0-2. What was that like for you mentally to stay positive, to get to where you're at now? Because I'm sure that had to have been kind of challenging early on in your career, right?
Yeah, the 2 losses were tough. They were good learning lessons. I was good. I think tasting defeat's important in this sport. I think it's not too many people get out with that on the losses side. So to get those losses was important to just really figure out what I needed to improve on. But to be honest, I still just love training. I still love competing. So just had the confidence that I would get that win eventually and just sort of stuck at it. I knew I was better than being an 0-2 fighter, so I just stuck to it, kept training. My coach, Ben, really just instructed me to keep pushing, and we had a goal of getting to 10 wins and 2 losses, and we just slowly chipped away at that goal.
Yeah, well, you look fantastic as of late, and your UFC debut was a round one win over Pete Rodriguez. You were initially supposed to fight Worley Alves, so obviously that late notice opponent swap. How much did that change your game plan going in against Pete?
To be honest, it didn't actually change the game plan at all, really. The game plan was, and always is, to sort of implement what I want to do, which is just move and sort of stick and move and damage my opponent. So it didn't, to be honest, the game plan was much of the same, was just be tight with the defense and try and damage the opponent. So I was lucky enough, yeah, I think my sort of style, I'm lucky that I can sort of take those late replacement fights because my style sort of doesn't we don't really game plan too much directly to one opponent.
Okay, fair enough. As far as when you actually made your UFC debut, people talk about octagon jitters. The first time is a little bit different. Did it feel different for you, or did it just feel like another fight?
To be honest, it felt very much like another fight, except obviously the walk. When I made the walkout, it was a lot more like, wow, we're here now. Like, this is real. And it was pretty incredible. I took everything in, and it was definitely bigger than some of the other shows I've been on. But it was, to be honest, the whole feel, like the internal feelings, was much of the same as any other fight. The nerves are pretty similar, and just trying to stay on top of those nerves. But yeah, the octagon jitters never did actually show up, which is, I'm grateful for.
Yeah, no doubt. Did you ever play any sports previous to getting into MMA? I mean, you look like an athlete. I would imagine maybe when you were younger, you did some other sports like football or baseball or anything like that.
I was heavily involved in rugby union from really young age, maybe like 7 years old. I played pretty much up until I was 18, and then sort of just had been training while I was playing rugby in the later years of rugby, but then just decided that I sort of, like, when I sort of left school and the team rugby wasn't as strong, we sort of just went over to MMA and made that sort of my full-time training.
It seems like the right decision because things are going well for you now. Obviously, fighting at welterweight. What is that cut like for you? How big do you actually get?
I'm not actually, I don't think it's not too hard of a cut. I'm sort of just be pretty professional, see, like up to 6 to 8 weeks out from a fight, and really just focus on what I eat and get the weight down. And then it's, as long as I do all the right things that far out, it's normally a pretty easy cut. Like right now, I'm still eating pretty good, having 3, 4 decent sized meals a day, not too hungry, and probably keep that going up until mid next week, and then just slowly cut the extra calories out. But it's not, I don't think my cut is, it's obviously not the funnest thing in the world, but I don't think it's a very big cut. I'll probably have to cut 3 kilos of water, 7 pounds or something.
Oh, really? That's not bad at all.
7, 8 pounds, maybe. Yeah, I think.
Okay, so welterweight is just your weight class moving forward. If that's all you're cutting, that seems to make a lot of sense. When you do look at the weight class here, the welterweight division, it's very, very deep. You obviously have an absolute monster as the champion in Usman. How do you feel you fit in right now? Do you get a couple more wins? Do you feel like you could crack the top 15 maybe late this year, early next year?
Yeah, that, to be honest, that'd be one of my goals. Obviously, I'm definitely not looking past Ramazan. He's a tough opponent. I'll be putting my all into that. But yeah, something that I would look forward to is hopefully get the win over Ramazan, and then maybe a fight in the shortly after, which would hopefully bounce me into at least a top 15 opponent. I don't know if that's a big ask, but that would be my goal. But if not, I'll just keep pushing on. But yeah, hopefully beat Ramazan, beat someone else, get a top 15 opponent.
I wanted to ask you too about the GOAT conversation because my favorite mixed martial artist when I was a little kid was George St. Pierre. And now,
Yeah.
Usman is running through people. I mean, obviously outside of Colby Covington, those couple of those fights were so close. But when you think of everything that Usman has accomplished so far, has he caught GSP or has he surpassed him? Like, who do you think is the all-time best at 170?
I still think GSP is probably. I think Usman's very good. I think if they were to fight in their prime, I think it would be an incredible fight. I think Usman is very. I still think George St. Pierre is probably the GOAT at welterweight, just from he put so many wins together. Well, Usman's on the way there, definitely, but I think he just needs to put some more wins together, beat maybe a couple more of the up-and-coming guys, and then, yeah, no doubt, I think he will go down as probably one of the GOATs of the welterweight division if he can keep putting these wins together like he has been.
Yeah, for sure. There's no doubt about that. Well, let's dive into UFC 275 again, June 11th. It's in Singapore. How far is that from you? Is it a long travel?
It's a pretty quick trip. It's 5.5 hour trip from Perth, so we're pretty lucky in that regard. And
Yeah, no,
this and same time zone as well. So there's not much adjusting to be done, which is pretty cool.
perfect. So easy transition for you. What's
Yeah.
your pick in the main event? Glover Teixeira, Yuri Prochazka for the light heavyweight title. I can't wait for this one. Are we gonna have it and new, or is the old guy gonna get it done and retain?
I don't know. That's a tough one for me. I think Glover's really good. He's a veteran and he's very technically good. He doesn't leave many openings to be beaten. Yuri's obviously young and a bit more reckless and wild. If I was to put money on it, I'd probably lean towards Yuri, just that young, bit more wild, less weathered. But who knows? It's going to be a banger of a fight, but I'd be putting my money on Yuri.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Obviously, you'll be fighting late earlier on in that evening. Are you going to be able to, as long as you're healthy and everything, are you going to try and kick back and watch the fights there at the venue?
Yeah, if that's an option, definitely. I would, yeah, for sure. If I'm in the venue, I definitely want to watch the fights and hear the crowd and all that. So if that's an option, I'll definitely be there.
All right, and your opponent, Emeev, he's 20-5. He's coming off a split loss to Danny Roberts, so he's going to be coming in there hungry. You mentioned earlier that heavy, Russian wrestling style. Is that basically what this fight's going to come down to? You stuffing takedowns and keeping it on the feet?
I think so. I think Ramazan's pretty well rounded. You see that, and I think to be honest, I don't think he's extremely a dangerous fighter. I think a lot of his wins and losses do come from decisions. I think, yeah, he's pretty flat-footed. I think basically just not staying in his face and just moving, and stick and move is probably the game plan. Stick and move and stick and move.
Do you think you get him out of there? What's your official prediction for this one?
That's the plan. I'm going to try and damage him from the get-go and really try and hurt him and try and get him out of there. I'm prepared to go 15 minutes, but yeah, I think I'm going to get him out of there and I'm going to be gunning for that finish from the get-go.
All right. And if you are healthy and you get this win, how active are you trying to stay here in 2022? When can we expect to see you back in there?
I don't know the dates. Yeah, I will actually have a look at the calendar and try and maybe just pick a day and say that's when I want to fight again. But I would like to fight 2 more times this year. So I don't know, maybe if there's where are we now? Maybe it's September and then towards the end of the year or something like that. But yeah, 2 more fights this year. I think if all goes well this next weekend, I think is the goal. Hopefully that I can make that happen.
Perfect. Well, I can't tell you how excited I am to see you back in there. It really is a joy to watch you compete. I think one of the best prospects on the UFC roster, in particular in the welterweight division. So again, Jack Della Maddalena meets Ramazan Emeev, June 11th, UFC 275. Before I do let you go, I want to give you the floor. Tell people where they can follow you on social media. And if you have anyone to thank, the floor is yours.
Perfect. Thanks, Ryan. I appreciate that. Yeah, at social media is just at Jack Della Maddalena, one word. And yeah, just shout out to my team, Scrappy MMA. The boys working hard with me to get to where we are. So thank them so much. And thank you, Ryan. Thanks for the call.